Welcome. I'm Suzette McHugh, Industry Partnership Coordinator at North Montco Technical Career Center. And today we're going to take a look inside North Montco. Right now we're going to learn about the Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning program. And joining me are Mr. Mike Rivera, the instructor, and one of his students, Kyle Albrecht. So I'm glad you both could be here.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm going to start with you because it's really exciting to have you here because not only are you the teacher, but you were also a student at one time at North Montco in the Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning program. So can you tell us how things have changed? What was it like when you were a student?
Well, when I was a student, the program was in its infancy. Things were growing and changing very fast, but the instructor, for me, struck home and really helped mold me into the person that I am now. So even now, he's still in my life, and he's the one that recommended that I go for this type of position. He thought I was a good candidate to be a heating and air conditioning instructor, which I never thought that that could actually happen. But the changes in the program have been very large. When we started, the program went from having 2 or 3 heating systems to 2 or 3 air conditioning systems. Now we have probably 10 times that in the program. So they've really grown it because there's such a need in the industry for qualified heating and air conditioning personnel.
Right, especially with all this cold weather, we definitely know it.
Oh yeah.
Now, when you were a student, did you know, like when you were growing up, this is what you wanted to do, be in this field, or was it just something that came to you when you visited a tech school?
Well, the main reason I got into the business or into the field was because my dad was a refrigeration mechanic. And he'd take me to the job sites, and as soon as I realized that there was that type of class at North Montco, I was sold.
That's great, and who knew that eventually you would become the teacher?
It's amazing.
It is, it's great. Well, Kyle, you're 11th grade, and how long have you been in the program at North Montco?
I've been in the program since I was a freshman.
Okay, 3rd year there. So
Yep, 3rd year.
What do you like about it? What made you pick this program?
I like the challenges associated with this program and all the technical aspects that are associated with it. Mainly air conditioning and heating systems have sort of piqued an interest of me ever since I saw my uncle once working on it. And I learned that there was a class at Tech, and I thought, that's great. I should enroll in this and I should take a career in this. And ever since then, I've just been so interested every single year taking this program.
That's terrific. Well, I'm going to point out that you're in a uniform, the hat's part of this uniform, because you were working co-op. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Working co-op is great. I get to go out to the field working Mondays and Tuesdays. And the best part about that is there are some things in the field that you can't just learn in a shop lab setting. So in the field, you can really advance a lot more on your knowledge and expand your horizons and learn so much more than what you can just in the lab.
So part of your school day is going out to work?
Yes, yes. And it's not just going out to work and learning, you're also getting paid. You're on a payroll system going out into this field,
So you're well ahead of your peers because you're already working in the field that you plan to when you graduate?
Correct, yes.
So do you know what you really want to do when you graduate? Since you're still a junior, do you know?
I've laid out a couple of options. One of my options would be to further my education in another trade school or a college even. But then the next option is, if that doesn't work out, I can always just go right into the job the job I have now even. I can just keep working and go on a full-time schedule.
Oh, that would be terrific.
That would be great.
And sometimes some of these companies, what we found is they'll hire you through the co-op on full-time, and then they end up paying for your further education as well. So there's a lot of benefits to what you're doing. That's great.
Definitely.
So Mike, what are some of the things they're learning in the class?
Well, heating and air conditioning, it encompasses almost everything in one's house. We cover plumbing, electrical, then we get into the heating and air conditioning part of the business, but to successfully understand heating and air conditioning, electricity, very important, and the plumbing aspect of it, they all mesh together, so you can't have one without the other.
So they get all of this through the years. Is it different levels for different grades?
Yeah, of course, the ninth graders, we start them out very basic. Safety is our number one priority. In the heating and air conditioning industry, so many ways to get hurt, so we want to make sure they know, the students will know how to identify a hazard and then how to avoid them as they're working. That's our number one priority, and then from there we build, teach them how to use the tools properly, and then plumbing, electrical, and we bounce around a little bit just to make sure nothing gets stale and they don't get a little bored. But
And then they get to the point where Kyle is, where
yes,
you
it
have,
happens quick.
That's great. Now, Kyle, I'm thinking of a student that maybe 7th or 8th grade, not really sure about being in the heating program.
Mm-hmm.
What could you say that would help them? Like, I'm thinking they're probably nervous. I don't know anything about a heater or an air conditioner. How would I even begin to fix someone's? Like, how could you reassure them that they will learn it?
You just got to take confidence. You have to have that incentive to really try and go at it and really not be afraid of, making a mistake. I mean, it's all human error and it's all part of the learning process. But, once you do learn it and, you become advanced in it, then you will grow a lot of confidence. And I mean, I sure have over these years about taking this program.
Well, I think so. If you're only 11th grade and you're already working in the field, do you go out on jobs or are you learning more at the company?
I do go out on jobs. I go on both service and install jobs. What's great about install jobs is you can learn everything from a system from the ground up.
Right.
Whereas with the service jobs, you can learn things inside the system that can go wrong, or replacing parts, replacing pieces, that kind of thing.
Are you able to bring back any of the knowledge you're learning on the job and share it with your classmates?
Oh, definitely, by far. One of the students has also been taking a large interest in getting a job, and even actually a couple students, I should say, have taken a large interest. And they come to me asking, how is it, what it's like, and how I take on these challenges and how I fix problems. So sharing some of that knowledge and passing it forward, definitely will help them out in the long run.
Absolutely. It motivates them, too, for their future.
Right.
So how was Kyle selected, Mike? Are they selected? Do they have to have the initiative and ask you first? Or?
Well, to get into our PI-UP or co-op program, usually the instructor would see their potential and say, you are definitely a candidate for this program. You'd be a good representative for our school, and we'd go from there. Right now, we have a strong support from the industry that there's probably 20 or 30 different heating and air conditioning companies that come to us and say, we want to hire your students. So the demand is there, and if we could get more people involved and into it, we'd really do good.
I think that's what people need to understand, that there's probably so many jobs for you. When you graduate, there'll be so many available to you, you'll have your choice.
Companies actually had a bidding war for him.
See, that's great. So you need to keep getting more people involved because it's a
Right.
great field and you're really going to go far.
Yep.
And speaking of going far, I know some of your students recently competed at our Skills USA, which is like student government for technical schools.
Yeah.
And there's various skills competitions. You had a couple winners, and
Yes,
what
I'm
was
very
it?
proud.
Yes, you're the student that competed in the HVAC competition came in first place.
Yep.
You also had, I believe it was a second place person for speech,
Yep.
and another one for related technical math.
Correct.
So that's fabulous, all from your program. And your first place winner gets to go on to the state competition and compete against their peers.
Right.
So that's fabulous. But I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit more about it, because I know when you were in school, you also competed.
Yeah, that's why I really push and try to get my students motivated to get involved in these skills activities and competitions. That's what I did. I mean, I competed several years in a row for heating and air conditioning, for public speaking. And sometimes they just assume that there's only one avenue that they can compete. There's really a very broad range. So this year we signed up several guys, and they were all ecstatic to be involved. They had the right attitude, and they brought home the gold, pretty much, or the trophies. So that's great.
I think it's great because your experiences are really getting them involved, and people don't always understand that there are activities. You don't just come to the tech school for your specific program. There's activities to be involved with the other programs and get involved with everyone in the school and participate in this type of competition. So I think that's great to hear.
And to have the pride of winning first place gold in a heating and air conditioning competition, that'll help them get employment, but that'll also stimulate their peers and say, hey, what about me? I want to try harder. I really want to go for this type of competition myself. So it works in every single way. So.
That's great. And I think, Kyle, maybe we'll see you competing next year.
I definitely look forward to my first competition.
That would be great. Now, what is your favorite part of attending North Montco?
I'd have to say my favorite part is just the co-op program in general, the whole co-op program. Since I go full-time to the school, I spend all day at Tech rather than my sending school. And through the co-op program, just by being out at work, I've learned so much, and being able to take that right back to Rivera's class is, definitely a plus side. Spending lots of time in the lab, I mean, my lab class is the longest class I have of the day. So being able to spend most of my day in the lab doing HVAC is definitely a plus.
That's great. You obviously have a really strong interest in it. And you mentioned that you attend full-time, which means that you take your academic classes at North Montco.
At North Montco, yep.
And then your afternoons are spent either working or in the lab with your instructor and the rest of the classmates. Very good. If someone was interested in this program and not really sure, what advice would you give them?
I would say it's a really good program if you like working with your hands. If you're willing to get a little dirty, that comes with the job. Also, a very strong mindset. Like I said, confidence is a huge thing. You can't really be afraid to take on a challenge in this kind of lab environment. And also, just having a strong build yourself. I mean, we're moving large systems, and large material. Working with different tools too can be quite stressful. So you definitely have to have a good, strong set body as well.
Very good. Well, thank you, and we wish you all the best. I know you're going to go far, and hopefully we'll hear about you next year winning some competitions. And Mike, thank you for sharing this. We're so glad all your
You're
past
welcome.
experiences are being brought to your students, and congratulations to all your students for winning those awards. If you would like any more information about the Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning program, just contact one of the counselors at North Montco Technical Career Center. Right now we're going to take a break. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with information about the welding program.
Oh, look, a redhead.
Staring contest.
You still got it.
I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Welcome back. I'm Suzette McHugh, and today we're taking a look inside North Montco. Right now we're going to learn about the welding and fabrication program. And joining me now are Mr. Josh Seitzer and one of his students, Zahir Razi. Thank you both for being here. Josh, tell us a little bit about what's taught in the welding program.
Okay, our program is called Welding and Fabrication. So the program covers the basics of welding, and that involves metals, and we learn all about the different processes for cutting metal, welding it, the machines that go along with that. So it's a complex subject, but we break it down into parts so that they can understand, small pieces at a time. And then the fabrication part of it is when they learn to make things to specific sizes, work off of blueprints, technical drawings, and they get to make stuff. And that's what's fun about this program. It's a program where you learn to make things.
Now, earlier we talked with HVAC, and we learned that safety is very important. Now, I also heard that in welding you have a simulator. Is that to get students acclimated? Tell us about that.
Well, that's one of the first steps that we use. A student coming in to the welding program, and that could be at any point in the 4 years of high school, they may not know anything about welding. So we start off with just the basics. And the simulator is fantastic because it can graph all the different movements that they make when they're welding, and that's really important, and they can establish technique. And so getting the right technique in welding is essential to being able to have a good weld in the end and have the weld do what it's supposed to, which is hold the material together.
And by using the simulator, then you're not using any product, wasting anything for them to practice.
Well,
on.
that's an advantage too, and you can go back, you can actually play it's almost like a video where you can play the whole process out, and you can stop and pause it and say, well, here's where you went wrong. And you can't do that when you're just welding and everybody's crowding around one area. There's also a monitor, so they can watch exactly what's happening. The whole class can look at that. So it's really a good tool for diagnosis and developing good habits.
That's great. That
Right.
would definitely be helpful. Now, Zahir, how many years have you been in this program?
I've been in it since ninth grade, so 3 years. This will be my third complete year.
And what made you pick welding?
Well, I wanted to get an idea of what other options I could pick. So then I went around here and there, and then when I went into welding, that was when and I actually started to do it. And I was like, wow, this is something I would want to do in the future. So then I stuck with the class, and then it turned out to be a really good choice for me.
So you got to visit a couple programs, and this is the one you liked.
Yes.
All right, so I also know that you're working co-op too. Part of your day is spent working.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's a place called Fab Speed. They build customized stainless steel parts for exotics cars, and then it helps them make them go faster and run smoother. So basically what they do is they get a long stainless steel pipe tube, and then they bend it in some shapes and sorts, and then they this is what the final product would look like. They cut it into which parts they need, and then they just weld them together, and then they place them where they need to go, and then they just put them
So are you actually working on a part like this? Then?
I've cut the parts for them. I haven't started welding them yet since I'm new, but eventually I'll get to that point.
Do you get to see the experienced welders working on them?
Yes, I work right next to them. They help me. I help them if they need help. So yeah,
I bet you enjoy this. then.
it's really fun.
So what do you want to do? Do you know when you graduate what you plan?
I've looked into underwater welding. I've also asked my teacher, is that a good field? And he said, yeah, it's a very good field. They make a lot of money, and it's something I'm really looking forward to.
So Josh, he mentioned underwater welding. You see that on the Discovery Channel.
Sure, yeah.
Tell us, is it real? You're mentioning that there are good careers in that. What could you do with that?
Well, so an experience that we had this year was the students belong to the American Welding Society, and they have meetings every month. They have monthly meetings, and then the students can go because they've all become student members. This year in Philadelphia at the Dock Builders Association, which is down near the airport, they had a live dive welding tank. It's a place where they actually go and practice. So the students were able to go and see what that was all about. That's from Dryden Welding. They came down. It was a company that does dive welding. And a lot of it, of course, has maritime applications. So they're working on everything from pipelines and deep sea rigs to docks and things like that. So it could be close to home, it could be further away, but usually the further offshore you go, the more money you make. So this is a very lucrative field. And what Zahir's doing and the training that he's received with FabSpeed has donated materials for us to practice. That's all practice for pipe welding. So what he's doing there can have an application to whatever he decides to go into.
That's great, a lot of opportunities.
Right.
Well, talk more about other projects you work on in your class.
Okay, well, each student, their senior year has a senior project. And that's one that, as they've gone through the program, they get to select a project that they'd like to build. So I think, as I said before, welding, we make things. We fabricate stuff. So they get to look at something, and then they start to notice things that are welded. And just about anything that's metal is welded. So cars are welded, bridges are welded, buildings are welded. Structural steel code is something that I really focus on, especially in the first 2 years of the program. And their senior project can be anything that they design. I had a student last year who decided he wanted to get his certification for structural steel code. So this is a field that he wanted to go into after he graduated. And again, that's a very lucrative field. So he put all of his time and effort into getting his certification, and he did. We went up to WTTI and took a weld test, and he passed his certification for 3 different positions and different processes. So that's something that they learn about. And then the senior project is kind of like them exercising it. This year we have a student who's building a fire pit. So it's an outdoor, barbecue/fire pit. And it's going to be auctioned off as a fundraiser for one of the students at our school. So he put aside his own interests in building something for himself, and he decided to make something for one of his classmates. So there's a lot of cool opportunities.
It sounds like welding there's so many different avenues to go through. Now, how about any of your graduates? Do you know what they're doing?
Yeah, there's a lot of different avenues, and it's kind of cool because I get to stay in touch with some of the students. I have students who are into dive welding, and I had a student who went on to a school in New Jersey, post-secondary, and he just really wanted to learn this dive welding, and he actually came back and spoke to the class and brought in his paycheck. And that was a massive motivator for the students to look at that and say, oh, that could be me making that much money every 2 weeks, or whatever his pay increments are, or whatever. So their students can go on to do anything. Fracking is a big industry right now. So that's a lot of pipe welding and working with American Petroleum Institute code, and there's a lot of students who have gone on to that. Last year we had a girl who was in our class, and yeah, girls can weld too. Actually, they're usually better welders than boys because they don't anticipate things. They don't think they know everything, and they listen, and then they try things. And so our student last year went to Penn College of Technology, and because of the way our school is set up, it's called an articulation agreement. And what happens is a student can earn college credits just by participating in the class, and then record keeping on what they've done, what they've accomplished. They get to have those credits applied to their college transcript, and they don't have to pay for them in college. So it really puts them forward with the rest of their class, maybe because they had the experience, and it's because our program is certified.
See, and you're saying a lot of things that I think people don't really understand. First of all, there's so many jobs out there for welders.
Absolutely.
And then also the fact that you can go on to college, and that while you're in high school at North Montco in welding, you can earn college credits. So that's all things that I don't think people really understand. And you mentioned about the female students. I know you've had them in the past, and prior teachers have also said that, sorry Zahir, but they said the females are pretty good welders there, but we know you are too. So I think that's all important, everything you brought out about that. You also mentioned before the American Welding Society and how the students are part of that.
That's
How
right.
does that benefit them?
So the American Welding Society is kind of a governing body that makes up a lot of the codes and rules that welding in America goes by. So they are the standard really for the way that welding is done in the United States. So that's kind of the best way of saying it. And it is international too. They have a lot of international codes also. But what being a partner with them at the school does is it allows the students to become part of the different groups that are meeting together and the networking opportunities that are there when they get to meet other people who are in the AWS. So we're actually working on sending a student right now down to Miami, Florida, for 3 days in the summertime to go to a leadership institute, and so he gets to meet and talk to other people who are in the welding industry. So that's something that we're working out, and we're trying to find out how we can do that.
So it's a lot of networking already while they're still in high school.
Well, absolutely. And welding is really a good grounds for an engineering in the future, to be able to engineer in the future or study engineering. And so students who are in the welding program can go on to learn all about materials science, and it's really a science class. It's also a chemistry class. 2/3 of that periodic table that everybody's learning in high school is metals. So how do they work? What happens when you change variables, you change heat, or you change any of the principles about welding? So it could be considered a metallurgy class, a science class. We apply mathematical principles to making circles and making different shapes and bend allowances and bend tolerances and things like that. So it's a lot of fun, and it applies. It's kind of the reason why you're in all your other classes in high school.
Right.
It really is an application of all of your academic classes.
Right, you integrate the math and the technical programs, and it all makes sense then.
Right.
Zahir, what's your favorite part of welding?
I just like the hands-on experience. Like I went to a protective services, and I just it didn't feel right for me. So then I like working with my hands-on skills. So then when I went in welding, I was like, wow, I get to do all this stuff by myself, and the teachers explain it really well in a safe environment to me, so I know what to do, and then eventually we get to do by ourselves, and then it works out really well.
I think that's great, and I think it's great that you had the opportunity that if you try one program at North Montco, if you don't like it, there's still 21 other programs that you can try to find the one that fit, and we're glad this fit for you. Josh, we were talking the other day about how your welding program works with other programs at the school.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, currently, right now, we're working on a dashboard. We're working on the whole dash for a car that they're working on in collision repair. And so they've taken this Mustang and they want to turn it into a racetrack car that goes real fast in a quarter mile, okay? So they want to lighten it up, they want to make it as light as possible. So they pull the old dash off, and we're fabricating a new dash in aluminum, which is a lot lighter than what they had before. So, welding is really critical in many of the other skills that we're training for at North Montco. So in collision repair, they weld. In automotive, they weld. In diesel, they weld. So, and there's more. But
Right.
we work side by side with another class called precision machining. And they're metal workers. And so they get to learn how to make and machine different parts. And we weld them. So it's really exciting to be able to work side by side with other shops and other programs and labs. And so we can integrate with them and work on projects together. That's just one of the projects that we're working on right now.
That's great. It's great to hear, and I want to thank you both for being here today and sharing this information about the welding and fabrication program. If you would like any more information about the 22 programs offered at North Montco Technical Career Center, just give us a call at 215-368-1177 or visit our website, www.nmtcc.org. For North Montco, I'm Suzette McHugh. Thank you for watching.